This changes everything because Russians are panicking as Ukrainians are approaching from unexpected positions, fully exposing the next line of defense of Russians. But more about all of this in just a couple of minutes. What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. And let's get straight to the point and talk about some ridiculous Russian propaganda. So, recently, for the next year, a calendar with Putin's favorite quotes was introduced. And here are my favorite ones. First of all, Putin says that we should always stand firm on our feet and look forward into the bright future. And in the picture, Putin is like kinda being like in this awkward position and most certainly not even looking forward. The next quote by Putin is that if you always talk about something falling down, it will never stand up. And the most mind-blowing one is that he says if a grandmother had different genitals, she'll become a grandfather. I mean, kinda makes sense, right? Let me know in the comments which one was your favorite one and what other quotes you think Putin should have said. Something like, it is not Russia who attacked Ukraine, it was Ukraine who attacked Russia on the territory of Ukraine. I mean, so yes, if it does sound kinda ridiculous, can you please like this video and subscribe to my channel? You can also follow me on Instagram to see how I live outside of YouTube, the link is down below. But okay, now let's talk about the steps that Ukraine is taking to prepare for the next part of the counteroffensive, and then we'll switch our attention to the east of Ukraine before finalizing everything in the south. And first of all, as you can see from this video, Ukrainian soldiers along with Swedish combat vehicles CV-90s are training how to assault flooded trenches, which will be extremely important in the next part of this counteroffensive, and soon you will see why. Next we have yet another development by the Ukrainian army, this drone with the top speed up to 60 km per hour and also the range of up to 5 km, which can carry up to 30 kilograms of a very useful cargo. And this particular drone will be also used to clear Russians away from their trenches. In addition to that, Ukrainian soldiers are also training how to quickly relocate and assault from different positions using this armored transporter called Max Pro. But at the same time, Ukrainians also developed their own armored personnel carrier called Novator, which is capable of transporting up to 10 soldiers and have extra protection from the mines. And so, what is the response by Russians? Well, as you remember from the last couple of weeks, Ukrainians were actively attacking Russian planes on the territory of Russia. And well, Russians came up with the pretty genius, as you think about it, solution. They simply put car tires on top of the planes, protecting them from the explosive drones. Rate in the comments from 1 to 10 how useful you think it will be. And one last thing before we go to the east of Ukraine is that recently the Minister of Defense of Ukraine, Oleksiy Reznikov, has officially retired, and his place will most likely be taken by the head of the Ukraine's main privatization fund, Rustem Umerov. And so yes, now as promised, let's switch our attention to the east of Ukraine, but first of all just one quick mention about the capital of Russia, Moscow, which since the beginning of May of this year has already been attacked by Ukrainian drones more than 20 times, and on this map you can see the locations which were targeted by these drones. Next we go to Azov Sea, located right here, and according to Russians, due to an extremely heavy fog, they unfortunately crashed their K-52 attack helicopter, just once again confirming that there is yet another loss of an aerial vehicle of Russians, which has happened outside of combat activities. Congratulations, you played yourself. Then we go to the actual east of Ukraine and refer to the report by the Institute for the Study of War, which claims that Russians and Ukrainians continued combat activities along Kupiansk-Svatove-Kreminna front line, and reportedly Russians were even more able to make some advancements. And then as you take a look at this map, yes, potentially, they got a little bit closer to the front lines to the west of Kovalevka. But as we go down to the forests south of Kreminna, we can see that just a couple of Ukrainian soldiers were able to successfully assault Russian trenches, eliminating the invaders and pushing forward closer to this settlement. We have yet even another video allegedly from the eastern front lines, where Russians are trying to run, or how they would call it, evacuate, and they were covered with the cluster munition, also pretty much leaving no chances. But it's not over yet, because right here is the picture of a Russian, one of the most modern T-90A tanks, which as you can see is destroyed somewhere along the Luhansk region. As we move down to Spirne, Ukrainian artillery was able to destroy a Russian air defense system along with the assault group located to the east of this settlement. But wait, there is more, because as we go to the most intense city in the east, Bakhmut, Ukrainians released us this video, which they are assaulting Russian positions right on the sunrise, obviously leaving absolutely no chances for the invaders and advancing several meters while doing this. Just because of the sunrise, the video in some way is pretty beautiful, so I would like you to see it for yourself. The full version, as always, you can find on my Patreon, the link is down below, and you can steal 1 week of free access. But another very significant success of Ukrainians in this area came to us from the south, from the city called Klishivka. As you can see from this map, Ukrainians were able to advance in the last couple of days, and even allegedly enter the city center, and most likely Russians realized that they are starting to lose Klishivka. That is why reportedly they started to relocate some of their forces from the south of Bakhmut to Bakhmut itself, pretty much kinda realizing and confirming that yes, Klishivka and most likely Andriivka in the near future will be completely liberated by Ukrainians. And so yes, now let's finally switch our attention to the south of Ukraine before talking about this unexpected position from where Ukrainians started approaching Russians. But first of all, unfortunately, civilian infrastructure such as agricultural machines and equipment in Odessa have been recently damaged by Russian attacks. And in addition to that, it has been also reported that one of Russian drones fell on the territory of Romania. Besides that, Russian collaborators and invaders in the southern, temporarily occupied regions are planning to do the so-called elections. That is why they registered a lot of party and other members, but majority of them, more than 80%, according to this British intelligence report, they belong to Russia United, Единая Россия, which is basically the most pro-Kremlin and pro-Putin government party ever created. So as you can imagine, there is absolutely no way in the universe that these elections will be fair, but we already know the answer who is going to win. So if there is any way you want to bet your money, this is it. Disclaimer, please be responsible when gambling. Then we have yet another video from the Black Sea, where a Turkish drone Bayraktar is destroying an assault group of Russians along with their boat, which tried to land in the northwestern part of this area. But at the same time, there are yet unconfirmed reports that Ukrainians were able to land on Kinburn Spit, which as you can see right here, might be a very good potential option for them to liberate Kherson region starting from the west. And yes, there is more, because Ukrainian artillery was able to destroy another assault group of Russians in their boat, which tried to cross Dnipro river, located to the north of Dnipryany. And even the Institute for the Study of War itself once again confirms the fact that yes, there is a Ukrainian activity on the left side of Kherson region. Very soon we'll talk about this unexpected place where Ukrainians are approaching, but first of all let's make a stop in Zaporozhye region. For example, in Robotyne, the settlement which had been recently liberated, Ukrainian snipers are still working, destroying the Russians at night, located to the south of Robotyne, in the settlements such as for example Novoprokopivka. To the east of Robotyne is located yet another key settlement called Verbove, where Ukrainians were able to ambush a Russian convoy, which had obviously the armored vehicles along with the infantry. And just overall, in the last several days, this is how much land Ukrainians were able to liberate in this direction. But most importantly is that the light Ukrainian infantry already officially crossed the first line of defense of Russians, which include the minefields, trenches and the dragon teeth. There are no reportedly heavy machinery yet beyond the first line of defense, but nevertheless it does already officially mean that yes, first line of defense of Russians is officially breached. In response to that, Russians started to put as many mines as they can in their second line of defense, but to be honest, they do not have much time, because previously it has been reported that the majority of Russian defenses, approximately 60% of them, were located on the first line of defense, and then the second and the third lines respectively only had 20% of defenses each. And Ukrainians, on the other hand, as soon as they breached this first line of defense and forced Russians to retreat, they had this quick moment when they were able to relocate some of their forces and bring even more reinforcements. And the biggest focus of Russians on the second line of defense will be these underground labyrinths and tunnels, which they will be using to suddenly appear to the left, to the right, behind and in front of Ukrainians. And just judging the activities of Russians, what they're doing right now, once again focusing and prioritizing the second line of defense, it basically means that they totally gave up on the first one and that the second line of defense is now fully exposed. But Ukrainians, they also do have their own surprises, and according to Russian infiltrators and Russian soldiers from the Zaporozhye front lines, Ukrainians started approaching them from very unexpected new positions. And specifically the place I'm talking about is located very close to between Zaporozhye and Donetsk region, to be honest mostly in the western Donetsk region, where Ukrainians started actively pushing next to Novodonetsky and Novomayorsky, which as you can see is located to the east to already liberated territories. This information came to us from no one else other than the Russian infiltrator himself, Alexander Khodorkovsky, who basically claims that there is a big concentration of Ukrainian forces, along with their combat vehicles and heavy machinery, located in Novodonetsky, and they are already doing the attempts to start advancing to the south as much as they can. Because as of right now, the biggest focus and priority of Russians in this front line is located right here, trying to repel attacks of Ukrainians coming from Staromayorsky. But as you can see, Novodonetsky is located to the east, which basically means in case Ukrainians are successful, they will be able to push Russians from two directions and maybe even semi-encircle them. In addition to that, Khodorkovsky mentions that Ukrainians are using the artillery against Russian positions almost 24/7, not letting Russian soldiers to sleep and also decreasing even further their morale and combat spirits. And ultimately, in case Ukrainians are successful in this area, the final major key cities in this frontline for them will be Berdyansk and Mariupol, which will obviously take time for Ukrainians to liberate those areas, but I do believe that it is quite possible. And I mean, who knows, we might even see some rapid liberations like last year, something that happened in Kharkiv and Kherson, so if you don't want to miss it, just please consider subscribing to my channel, it only takes one click. Thank you so much to all my patrons for your support, beware there are scammers in the comments, and see you tomorrow.